for so long. Come right back to it and let my mind run wild.
All right, it's 5:30 and I want to make sure that I honor everyone's time. This is such a busy time of year and I really appreciate you all taking the time to listen. And for those of you who are maybe watching the recording of this, yeah, I appreciate you taking the time. May is, often feel is busier than the month of December when we think about wrapping up semesters and the holidays. And so I deeply appreciate your presence tonight. I normally don't do a financial aid and scholarships Zoom during the month of May. In fact, normally I leave families alone during the month of May. But I think that there are so many different dynamics and pieces and parts of this, and it's complicated, and it is kind of nice, I think, to just get like a little introduction to it so that it doesn't feel like this mysterious and really daunting idea, just navigating through financial aid. So tonight I'm going to talk about just kind of general college affordability and figuring out, how to find the tools that are going to help you to feel like you can wrap your mind around the cost. And then I also want to talk some about scholarships and about grants, and a little bit about student loans and just how that works. Because, and you've heard me say this before, I think at our original orientation altogether here at school, I talked about how planning for college, in terms of like the cost and thinking about affordability, is so backwards from the way that we have been socialized to make purchases, right? Because we check to make sure that we have enough money to buy the $4 coffee. Do I have $4 before we pursue that coffee? And then, with college planning, it feels really uncomfortable and unsettling to make plans and pursue admissions at a college. There are all kinds of ways that we get attached to that idea, and then are like later on in the process find out the cost. So I want to talk a little bit about the scholarships and grants and loans, and of course the affordability, just to like kind of cut that feeling of everything being completely mysterious. Unfortunately, I am not the president of education or higher education. And so, because if I were, I would make sure that all of this information was so much more easily accessible to families. And that's why I'm here tonight, to do this in this corner. So, a couple of topics that may come up or questions that you might have as we move through some of this. You hear about federal student aid, or the FAFSA application. It's an acronym for federal aid. And that's something that I'm happy to answer questions about tonight. But I will say that, like, we'll probably hop on another Zoom, maybe over the summer, and I can kind of give you the rundown of how that works, along with a similar application called CSS Profile. Those topics I'll definitely cover a little bit later. This is just really dense. It's a lot, and I just don't want to, I don't want to hit you all really hard with all of it, all in the same evening. And then the other part that I'll talk about at another meeting is figuring out like exactly what a financial aid offer says when you do receive that. And again, both those things, the FAFSA, the CSF profile, and those financial aid offers, are not urgent needs to know. So I'll talk about them later on. Before I jump into all of this, what's coming. I'm going to talk a little bit about the summer workshops. If your student has not signed up, I highly recommend doing that. There's a lot of flexibility within the days that it's offered. You know, it here on the screen, it says 12 to 4 p.m. It may actually only take until 3, but I just want to make sure that we allow for the time. And then, you know, like I said, there's a lot of flexibility here with these, but they are both like really helpful for students who are considering four-year college in the realm of possibility, but also just for students who are feeling like ready to keep growing and evolving and do some self-reflection. So I often say to your children in the class of 2025, like, this is nutritious for you. You know, consider this like eating a few vegetables, because you know that it's going to help you and you know that it's going to feel good, you know, make you feel good. But yeah, might not always at every moment taste the greatest. So again, I really recommend that your students sign up for this. We've got, like I said, lots of options there. And if you are out of town during all of these dates, that's okay. We will figure out some other times to work on these things. The main reason why we do them in the summer is to lengthen the runway when we think about, you know, our students working through the next 6 months. It really is helpful for them in terms of workload and maintaining stamina through this process. So that's why everything is spaced out. Okay. One thing really quickly, if you have questions, please throw them in the chat. I will take a look at them like once I get through all the content. And again, don't have to memorize all of this or necessarily like write everything down, because you have this video and of course you have me to answer questions at any point. But okay, I'm going to start by telling you all, I think something that you already know, which is that some colleges cost more than others. Okay. And it's hard to, you know, it's hard to imagine that that colleges would add a sticker price, right? Because that is the number that is so intimidating and scares everybody off. Those are the numbers that are published online. So when you are, or your student are looking at different costs of colleges, what you are seeing generally, like at first glance, is going to be that sticker price. And the sticker price is, you know, in college admissions terms, is called the cost of attendance. And so that is like the tip top most that something would cost. So I have a couple of examples of different sticker prices on the screen. These are all in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. So we've got the cost of the community college, UNC in Charlotte, Queen's University of Charlotte. My sister got her master's there. And then Davidson College. And it's funny, that's actually where my dad graduated from. However, it did not cost $70,000 when he was there in 1968. So there's that. So these are all examples of those sticker prices. Next, and more important and interesting fact is that the sticker price of a college is really different from what a student is actually going to pay. So again, you don't necessarily want to look at that number and get attached to it. There are all kinds of, you know, families with all kinds of incomes, and also students with like different strengths and different challenges. So, you know, I feel like it leaves families wondering, like, why wouldn't the colleges just post their net prices, you know, these actual dollar amounts, which you actually end up paying? You know, why wouldn't they just publish that instead of the sticker price? Because that would make so much more sense, right? And really truly the big, you know, reason for that is that students at the same college are going to pay different amounts for the exact same classes and the whole experience. And so, you know, we've got like a list of hypothetical people who would pay these different amounts at Queen's University. And Queens was the one with the sticker price, that cost of attendance, the highest possible amount at 53,000. But you've got, 4 different students here as examples, all paying different prices. And the reason why, there are a couple of reasons why that is. The colleges will basically take information from each student to determine, financial information from their family to determine what the cost will be, and for them to attend. So the varying net prices really depend on 3 factors. And the first one is, how awesome the college thinks that your student is. And then how much the student's family can afford to pay. And every once in a while, this third one comes into play, which is where the student lives. And that's not across the board the case, but every once in a while that's the case, because some colleges are specifically recruiting students or admitting students based on, their hometown, their home base, their home state, because you think about colleges that are state schools, they're usually give favor in admissions to students who are in state. So that can be part of that equation. So I just, that is not like, this is not like well, I'll just move to the next slide. So the final and most important thing to know is that you have a tool in order to figure out those numbers. For example, like if we go back here, how did they actually find out what these numbers were going to be? How would families anticipate that? There's actually a tool for that. And it's called the net price calculator. And every college has a tool on their website, but you can always go to the Department of Education's net price calculator database. That's one that maybe you want to write down, but I'll also, I can put that in the chat as well, just so that everybody has that in case you're a person who's out driving right now. The Department of Education's net price calculator database is a really helpful tool if you want to really try to figure out those numbers. At this point in the process, if you do go and visit that, there is the chance that it could be overwhelming. But my hope is that you will go back and visit it again, and visit it again, and take, of course, like what you find into consideration. But like I said, I hope that it's not something that is discouraging. I think that it is helpful to have that tool, and especially so early on in this process, to have a good idea of what to expect. So that's my main reason for throwing that out there. Okay, so I'm going to kind of shift gears away from that tool and just kind of like generally talking about cost of attendance and the net cost. And I'm going to shift gears and kind of steer us towards different kinds of scholarships. Students are always, and parents, of course, too. We're all looking for scholarships. And it's one of those things that, that we wish that there were like a perfect database out there of them. And most of the ones that are out there are kind of tough to navigate and take some persistence and commitment to stick with, but we do find them. I want to tell you a little bit about the types of scholarships that are out there. The first one, and it has an asterisk on it because it's the one that we really want to lean into, are institutional scholarships. And so those are scholarships that are given by the institution that your student is applying to. Oftentimes those scholarships are like a student will be notified that they have been awarded that scholarship when they receive their acceptance letter. Sometimes it's like in the second paragraph of the acceptance letter. And so that's usually based on both, both, like it can be based on, and this is in another slide, but I'm going to skip to it anyway, because it's important to know that's usually based on their what is called merit. They're merit based. And that means like how hard your student has worked and what results are there. Like if your student, say, has like really worked hard, made really, really great grades, they can definitely be awarded a merit scholarship from different institutions. And then there are also opportunities for institutions to give scholarships that are need-based, and that is based on your family's income, like we were talking about before. And so those, like I said, can often be awarded when the student is accepted to the college. However, there are a lot of colleges, especially ones that they've just come up in the past couple of cycles that will, they will ask students, they'll say, okay, hey, you're going to apply early. You're going to apply and apply early action, right? Where there's not a big commitment. And once you're accepted to our college, then you have the opportunity to apply for all of these scholarships that we offer, the institution offers. So that's another scenario that is pretty common that I see a lot. And I know that Webster University does that, Rhodes College does that. And that's one of the big reasons why, the class of 2025 is strongly urged by me to apply early, is because that keeps those doors open for large scholarship awards. So again, the institutional scholarships, like those are the ones that we really want to try to lean into and acquire. And the big reason why is because of course, like I see your students, I see that they work hard. They, based on what I've seen in the past, like your students qualify for these. The second two on this list, private scholarships and local scholarships, these are offered by either nonprofit organizations or businesses nationwide, and then also, like I said, locally for local scholarships. Private scholarships and local scholarships are the ones that you see in, like, say, like a scholarship database. There are a lot of different software platforms and different websites that hold that data. You probably hear about, like, Access Scholarships, Scholarship Owl, scholarships.com, they're all good tools. Even School Links has that within it, where it has the tool for your student to go in and plug in their GPA and the things that they're interested in and the schools to which they're applying, and see what filters out. Sometimes those websites can be really frustrating too, because they can fill out a profile, or maybe your student is feeling like, I don't want to fill out a profile, I just want to browse. And in that case, it just sends you in circles. So if you or your student do decide that you want to go that route of exploring the private scholarships, I do recommend creating an account wherever it is that you search, whether it's, Access Scholarships or Scholarship Owl. And then that way it's less likely to send you in a loop. A lot of those private scholarships can feel like you're in a sweepstakes, because a lot of them are no essay scholarships, and they are real and they are awarded, but like there are a lot of people applying, and if you don't really lose anything by giving it a try. but I think that like when time is really valuable, that's something that, you know, your student will have to weigh is like, do I want to spend my time filling these out if it is actually the case that there are, you know, 500,000 students who are applying to this as well. So just know that like that those private scholarships, they are there. People apply, people win them. But again, the institutional scholarships are the ones that like we really want to lean into. The last category is local scholarships, and those are similar to private scholarships in that they are offered by different organizations and businesses. However, they're often the ones that I see here in Memphis are specifically for high school students who are in Memphis and they or Shelby County, graduating from high school in Shelby County. And sometimes depending on like their eligibility rules in the description, maybe it's only for somebody who is graduating from a charter. Maybe it is only for a student who is graduating from a public school, a public high school, and is going to an HBCU. So, you know, for all of these, of course, you'll want to look at the eligibility rules before your student applies. And just so you know, like this is not necessarily right now an urgent task. And that's the part that feels really weird. Like I said, you know, we're used to knowing how much money we have before we dig in and make a purchase or get attached to something. And generally these scholarships happen. The institutional ones will find out by the end of 2024 generally. Sometimes they run into February. The private scholarships and local scholarships, private ones are usually year round. Like your student could apply to some in the fall, but they generally, for private and local, you don't find out about whether or not they've been awarded until the spring. So again, not an urgent, you know, task for anybody right now because of the way that this process is built out. But just helpful to know in terms of like resources and what to expect. So yeah, let me get this one. I talked a little bit a moment ago about need-based and merit-based scholarships. I'll just say it one more time. The need-based scholarships are based on the income of your families. And then the merit-based scholarships are based on how your child has done in high school, how they've done, you know, in their classes, how difficult their classes are. One of the things that is really great about Crosstown is that all of our core classes are all honors level classes. And often electives are honors level as well, just depending. But we do have a wealth of AP classes for students who do want to take that. And then for those who choose not to, you're still in honors classes. Like they still are of high value. My own daughter graduated from Crosstown with the class of 2023. So I can't believe that. But she got lots of merit-based scholarships, and she was not necessarily like in the very tip top of the class. But she still was awarded lots of merit-based scholarships and used them at the college where she's attended during this school year, the current school year. She just got home the other day. There's lots of sleeping happening at my house. Like, when are you gonna get up? Okay, moving on. Scholarships in the state of Tennessee. Okay, and I put this up here because we hear a lot about different scholarships that are available. And I notice, you know, both for myself, like I notice talking with families, but also like my ideas around those scholarships has not been entirely correct. And so I'm really think that it's important just for you all to know this on the front end. I went to a couple of years of high school in the state of Tennessee. I'm not from Memphis, but my first 2 years of high school were in Nashville. And I remember, hearing about the Hope Scholarship. I feel like it was maybe just getting started, or maybe, that's just my teenager memory. But I've talked to a couple of people who have been under the impression that the Hope Scholarship like completely covers college for students who are eligible if you go to a college in Tennessee. And that's not the case. And I think that it's important for you all to know that if your student is planning on, or if your strategy has been like, we're going to go in state because it's almost free, cheap, almost free. And that, depending on a few things, like yes, it can be cheap compared to some schools, but it's a lot. It can be a lot for some families, depending on the college, and depending on, if your student decides that they want to live in the dorm rather than, if like if you stay in Memphis and living at home. But I just think that it's important for y'all to know the Hope Scholarship covers $4,500 of tuition in the first and second year of a student's time in college, and then $5,700 in the third and fourth years. That is the case whether your student goes to a public or a private college in the state of Tennessee. And I think that that's surprising to some people. I know that when I have looked at financial aid offers, say from Rhodes College, which is small, private here in town, students are shocked when they see the Hope Scholarship Award on their financial aid offer, because the assumption is that it's only for the state schools. But it is something that applies to private colleges. So whether your student is thinking Rhodes or Belmont or Fisk, like all of Sewanee, like every private college in Tennessee does Hope Scholarship will award that if your student is eligible. And then, so I'm going to move down the list. Tennessee Promise is fantastic. It is basically full tuition for 2-year programs at what are called participating institutions. Participating institutions in Memphis are Southwest Tennessee Community College, Tennessee College of Applied Technology, and also More Tech. There are colleges all over the state of Tennessee, both community colleges and then Tennessee College of Applied Technology, like different branches of that. And there are actually a couple of 4-year institutions that are considered like Tennessee Promise schools. One of them is Austin Peay State University, and Tennessee State University has Tennessee Promise programs as well. The thing that is important to know about Tennessee Promise is that it is only exclusively for 2-year programs. So the misunderstanding that can often happen with that, with Tennessee Promise, is students will think, okay, it's going to pay for 2 years for me to go to school. So hypothetically, I could apply to Southwest and go there for 2 years and get all of my requirements out of the way. And then it'll be totally free while I'm there. And then I can transfer to a 4-year college, finish out my last 2 years taking classes that I'm really into, and it'll be so much cheaper. And that's where there's a big timeout, because Tennessee Promise that won't cover that. It will only cover 2 years of a student working towards a certification of some sort, or like an associate's degree of some sort, and that is where it ends as far as covering tuition. That's not to say that students could not, re-enroll and But the credits don't necessarily transfer. When I say re-enroll, I mean like re-enroll in another institution, but the credits don't necessarily transfer and serve as like the core credits. So that's a little bit tricky, and that is the catch that comes up with Tennessee Promise. And that's something that we'll apply for in the fall, for students who want to keep that door open. That's something that, I always recommend to families is, just to keep all different doors open, because, you never know what will turn out to be the right path. So the last two that are listed on here, UT Promise and Memphis Promise, are what are called last dollar scholarships. And what that means is that, if you fall into a certain income bracket, you can apply for UT Promise and Memphis Promise, and whatever cost for tuition is left over after the Hope Scholarship is awarded, if there's any further cost that's left, the UT Promise or the Memphis Promise will cover what they call last dollars. And of course, as you can see, all of these scholarships have nice and confusing names. Um, if you're ever confused, just ask me and I can differentiate between them. But again, just like when I am talking about the SAT and the ACT, I pronounce them obnoxiously just to make sure that we're talking about the different scholarships, and I'll probably do the same with these. So yeah, those two, again, just last dollar scholarships, but again, important to know about. There are some more and smaller, like, supplemental scholarships that the state of Tennessee offers to both students who are going to community colleges, and then also students who are going to public and private colleges in Tennessee. But I didn't include all of the details of that on here. I can publish that somewhere else if you just are curious about like the Aspire Hope Supplement and the GAMS Hope Supplement. Those are all, like I said, kind of micro scholarships that can be added in for students who are attending either public or private colleges in Tennessee. Okay, so that was scholarships, right? That was all scholarships. I'm going to kind of shift gears to grants. Federal government awards grants for students who are going to different colleges and actually career schools too. And you don't have to repay them. And I think that is helpful for people to hear, that grants are, the money is awarded, and that's that. The one that you normally hear about, both probably in the media and then just in life, are called Pell Grants. It's spelled Pell. Pell Grants I mean, they're incredible. There are so many people who are using Pell Grants for their school. There is like a lifetime cap on Pell Grants. And often the assumption is that, you'll only qualify for Pell Grants if you're like extremely low income. And that's not the case. I know quite a few people who qualify and are not necessarily considered to be in that category. There have been many families and many students. So, like, be prepared, that for that possibility, that and like I said, Pell Grant is the one that you hear about the most. There are other grants out there, but that's the one that you're going to see mostly in terms of like in terms of federal student aid that's awarded. Okay. So I'm going to kind of jump to something that's complicated, and you don't have to retain all of this, but I think that it's just good to have like somewhere to start, about loans. It's sometimes it's the case that loans are in the cards, and it will make sense for a family or for a student to go ahead and take out loans. I think that it's important for you all to know about like the different types of loans and then also who it is that is involved in those loans. Um, the very first loan, if when it does come to the point where you're looking at the financial aid offers, it seems like just about every school will incorporate a federal student loan into the offer just so that you know what is available to you. And I think the thing that's really important for both you and for your student to know is that um, the loans that are known for being flexible in terms of repayment and having really low interest rates compared to others um, are the federal student loans. And again, those are the ones that pop up on the financial aid offer that you'll eventually will receive from a college. There's a maximum amount that can be awarded to a student when they're going into their first year, and then it goes up a little bit the second year, and then you see for third and fourth year on the screen that the maximum is $7,500 for those last 2 years. So, basically the federal student loans, the purpose, they're trying to keep them, they put a cap on them. They have fixed interest rates and, and of course, like lots of detailed terms that, you'll want to look into, but those are loans that are taken out by the student themselves. There are other types of loans, of student loans, that require a cosigner. Generally, it's a parent or a family member. And those loans are kind of labeled or categorized as private student loans. Some are called and parent plus loans, and then even institutions will offer student loans. They usually all require a parent to co-sign on that. So obviously all of these different types of loans, they are borrowed money. They've got to be paid back at some point. The federal loans, the way, they're, like I said, they're kind of like the first stop for the reasons on the screen, but then also there's always the possibility, and they even, state this in, I guess you could call it their marketing or like their appeal, is that like there is the possibility of the loan being forgiven. And that is, kind of goes under the umbrella of flexible repayment. So the reason why I want to make sure that you all see this is that, the scenario often comes up where a student will be really excited about the scholarship offer that they got from a college. Dang, this school gave me $35,000 a year. And because it's a lot, but maybe the college actually, like their actual cost of attendance is something like, $75,000 a year. And, they're going to, of course, like read your financial information. They'll gather all of that from you, and we'll talk about that. That is to come. But yeah, like what can often happen is that there is, in spite of a $35,000 or $40,000 a year scholarship, in spite of Pell Grants, like there's still this large number, and that can be really frustrating. And so knowing that $5,500 is the max loan that a student can take out on their own. And then, if they don't have a family member who, has great credit and is able to co-sign, it would probably be a good idea to like look and see what other doors they've got open. But that's not just, that's just kind of a general statement. It's not going to be the exact same for everybody. I just want y'all to know that there are these limits to these numbers, and that, and then that way you can kind of start the process of wrapping your mind around okay, like what could this affordability look like for us? Okay. Another option that often comes up for students that they can apply for is work study. And that is a great program. It's a federal program where students are connected with opportunities for them to work in order to pay for their tuition. It can offset the cost. There are also specific colleges out there that basically have their own work study program. My own daughter just finished her first year at Warren Wilson College in North Carolina, and every student, every single student, without exception, has an on-campus work crew that they are a part of, and they're responsible for some part of the operation of their college. My daughter Everett was in the dining hall. They found out really quickly because of her culinary skills that she developed with Miss Liz here at Crosstown High. They discovered really quickly that she was the best person to run the salad bar for the whole school. And so she worked 2 shifts every week, and that knocked a lot of the costs down for her college this year. So everybody there is required. So that's just something to know that exists. I'm not saying that you guys have to go and sign up for that college, but I'm just saying like explore that possibility that there are opportunities for internships, for community service, and then also opportunities for students to work in the areas that they are interested in studying. When I first got to college, I worked in the library, and it was great because I could, be helpful to other people. And, part of my job actually at one point was to work in the archives and catalog slides of birds from the Galapagos Islands. And then when I was done with that, I could work on homework too. And so that was helpful in offsetting cost. But just know that that exists again. Okay. This is an old slide and I'm going to skip over it. I apologize. I do want to point out that the federal student aid, the federalstudentaid.gov is their website. Federal Student Aid has a fantastic YouTube channel. There's really no reason right now, I think, unless you are just like really hungry to know more about this, to go and check it out. But they have really done a great job of they simplified FAFSA. What it has become is a great job. Like they really did a great job with the final product. As you probably know, the journey there is not over. But what they have in terms of content, both in their own website and then also on YouTube, is actually pretty great. So if you're curious about getting more information about, how loans work and the difference between subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans, which I mean, I can explain, but I don't think y'all want to stay here for that. That is a fantastic resource just so that you can feel like, okay, I am comfortable in understanding what all of these things are and how this works so that you can, feel good moving forward. School Links has a learning section, and I highly recommend to students like go and look at that. It's broken down, like they break down not just financing college, but like all kinds of areas of life readiness, like how different processes work. And there are like really short videos, which everybody's a fan of lately. There are short videos, and then like for the students, like they can like fill out like a little form when they're done, just to say like, hey, this is what stood out to me, and this is what I got out of it. But yeah, I recommend looking at that because it can be really helpful in terms of understanding financial aid and paying for college in general. Okay, I'm looking for questions in the chat. And I appreciate you all listening because that was a lot and it's really dense and it's still kind of like floating. George Sago asked, how are there any websites that you suggest for finding the best scholarships? Okay, so that's an awesome question. I feel like the first place to like go on a deep dive is the actual schools to which Reagan is applying to see like, okay, do they have like they're, they name them all these different names. They're like, oh, well, we have a chancellor's scholarship and we have a presidential scholarship. And then we have, like at Rhodes College, they have this amazing, it's called the Day Scholarship. Um, and there, there are all of these schools that have all different endowments and different scholarship funds that they have set up. So look at the actual institution where she's applying because that's going to be like the best, like number one first stop is the actual school. And that is something that like you don't necessarily stop like do once and then you're done because the college lists evolve. Like your students are likely to add schools and then maybe like drop a couple schools. So anytime a new school comes on the scene, make sure that you and your student, or really your student, but you too, because you want to be supportive, can go and look at the scholarships and figure out like, okay, is this a scholarship that is awarded upon admission, or is this a scholarship that you apply for after you've been admitted early action, which is usually the case, like the latter. Well, actually both, I'd say 50-50. Like there's opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities. So yeah, institutions are number one. Okay, I've got a big one and I'm going to put it in the chat. This is important. There is this amazing platform. It's called Raise Me. And I put it in the chat, Raise Me. It's like all one word smushed together. It offers like basically they partner with a lot of different schools and it's wild to look at the list of schools with whom they partner. I can send y'all a list if that's helpful. Some of them are like state schools, some of them are small private liberal arts colleges, but basically they Raise Me partners with these colleges, and the way that it works is that students who are thinking of applying to college log into Raise Me, create an account, they log into Raise Me, and then they can take their transcript, which I will send to all of your students once it's generated in the first week of June. They can take that transcript and they can enter in like, okay, my freshman year, I took this class and this was the grade that I got. And it was honors class. And then I took an AP US history class, and all of that data generates what they call micro scholarships. And those micro scholarships add up and it is crazy. And for a little while, I was like, I don't know about this. Like, this just seems like too good to be true. You can add in, you can add in extracurricular activities, all kinds of things. And it generates micro scholarships. I know off the top of my head that Hendrix College is on that list. That Oh goodness, there are quite a few in Illinois. But for anybody who is applying to Hendrix or considering Hendrix on their list, they're definitely on that list. Okay, so student enters in all of that. It generates these micro scholarships and students are like, wow, I have accumulated like a $500,000 potentially in scholarships based on like the things that I've entered in about myself. And so eventually what ends up happening is oh, well, actually there was a student in the class of 2022 who completed the whole profile on Raise Me. And I saw her financial aid offer from Point Park University, which is in Pennsylvania. And it had, her institutional scholarships. It had a couple of institutional scholarships, and then it had a category for Raise Me. And all of those micro scholarships showed up on her financial aid offer because it's all connected. And she ended up knocking off like tens of thousands of dollars from her tuition to Point Park. And I kind of feel like that was part of the decision to go there was like, yeah, I love these two schools, but Point Park makes more sense because it's actually going to be cheaper because of these micro scholarships. DePaul University is on there too. I'm sorry that I can't, my brain's a little fried, so I can't remember all of them on the list, but there are a ton of them. There are like, I think there are like 80 colleges on the list, and some of them I haven't heard of, but that doesn't mean anything because there's a bajillion colleges out there. But I do recommend that. And when those transcripts are generated, it's usually like the first or second week of June. I'm going to send them to all rising seniors, and they can take them and like start up the Raise Me account. The trick with Raise Me is that like you have to complete the profile in like kind of early in the game. And when I say early, I don't mean like right now, but I mean like you're not necessarily going to get a financial aid offer from a college until the spring of 2025, right? And so, you can't wait until then to create a Raise Me profile. You have to do it basically at the beginning of the school year, because all of the different colleges, most of them have the deadline of like, okay, you got to do this by September 1st or October 1st, in order to receive the scholarship in that spring, because it just takes them a while and so they have that cutoff date. But anyway, Raise Me is a big one. In terms of private scholarships, the ones that, like I mentioned, that, can be offered by organizations or by businesses. Um, you know, I recommend I recommend checking with some big businesses. I know that Chick-fil-A gives great scholarships to their employees. I would also recommend checking and I know that that is like kind of like both a private scholarship, but also a local scholarship. But also like FedEx could like has had scholarships in the past. I don't know that they will this year. We just don't know. And then in terms of the local scholarships, those are usually published February 1st. So when we reach February 1st, 2025, like you and your students are going to get blasted with the local scholarships, which generally the database is within the Community Foundation of Greater Memphis. And so that's my big resource there. I also recommend that if you as a parent, or if you have a family member that was ever involved in Greek life in any capacity at any school, ask them if they are offering any scholarships. I cannot tell you how shocking it is to our students that they can apply for a scholarship from a fraternity or a sorority. And my speech around that is always like, hey, at their core, they are organizations of like community service. And one of the things that happens as you get older is that you want to look back and help the people who like in those same ways that you were helped. And so students often think like, oh, if I do this, if I apply for a scholarship from the sorority or fraternity, then I have to join, and that's not something that is in my plans. And that's not the case. Like that is not always the case. And so I just highly recommend keeping that door open. So yeah, I hope that that's helpful. The other, Mr. Sago, the other websites that I would recommend would be like Scholarship Owl is okay. I think that scholarships.com, like I wouldn't recommend that one. I think that one it drives people mad because it just kind of goes in circles. So yeah, I would recommend like checking Access Scholarships as well. I will say that like oftentimes those websites can get really overwhelming. Access Scholarships has a way for you to view them by month. And generally, when I'm working with students and they're curious about private scholarships, I try to, as y'all know, like we don't need it to be one big, huge, scary monster. We want to like break it down into step by step. And so with Access Scholarship, I would just recommend like looking at scholarships month by month. and it's really strange. Like they have it in this section called the blog section. Don't worry. You don't have to remember any of this. Your students are going to have access to all of this stuff and even like all of the weird little, intricacies that I mentioned. So I hope that that's helpful. Okay, Latasha Sago says, for Hope Scholarship and Tennessee Promise, are they only for first-time freshmen, i.e. use it or lose it? Okay, asking to see if a student who may initially choose to go out of state loses the opportunity to apply for these scholarships if they decide to return. Okay, interesting. So I know for sure that Hope Scholarship is available to students up to 16 months after they graduate from high school. So say a student is like, I'm gonna go like, well, even my own daughter like went to North Carolina last year for the year and was in school there. Hypothetically, if she was like, I don't think I want to go back, I think I want to transfer to University of Memphis, totally eligible for Hope Scholarship. And that is based on, yes, she's within the 16-month time frame, but then also like she is a student who met the minimum like GPA and ACT score requirements. And so that, and then also graduated from high school in Tennessee. So like that's the main eligibility. Tennessee Promise, I hesitate to offer like a firm answer on that because I'm not positive. And like I was saying before, a lot of these scholarships have lots of different names and then also lots of different stipulations that are hard to keep straight. I feel like there is a chance that Tennessee Promise is only available short, like in the semester after you graduate from high school. I'm not positive. I need to confirm that but I feel like that question has come up in the past. And part of that, the reason why I believe that it is the case is that there are volunteer hours, not a ton, but some volunteer hours that are associated with the Tennessee Promise scholarship. So it makes me think that because of those volunteer hours, it could potentially require them to enroll that fall of the following, like the fall that is following their graduation. Okay. And then, Mr. Melinda, okay, mentioned applying early at the beginning of the fall. And then again, regarding Raise Me, okay, the window time is considered early. Okay, yeah, so this is all kind of confusing. I agree. You need clarification on that. Okay, so in terms of Raise Me, they are kind of working on their own timeline. There's a lot going on in college admissions that just kind of has its own timeline. Everybody just kind of gets to decide how they want, when they want. And that's ultimately what makes this really messy, I feel like, is the steps involved and the timing. And so particularly for Raise Me, that is a task, like filling out that profile is a task that, your students are going to be able to do once they get their transcript in June. And, when they get back to school in the fall, they may want to update their profile to say like, I want to make sure that I add in here that I am part of this theater production. I wasn't originally planning on being in it, but here I am. I may as well add it because it could add more micro scholarships. But different colleges in Raise Me have different deadlines for completing the profile. So like some of them I've seen will say November 1st, and then others will say, no, actually ours is August 15th. So once we get those transcripts generated, it could be helpful to students and parents just to hop on Zoom one more time together and we can look at it together just to like go over some of those details. I will say that often students will look at the list of colleges on Raise Me and go, I'm not really interested in any of those schools. So I pass. And I get that, but at the same time, like we're looking to keep doors open. And I always feel that sense of responsibility to make sure that they go ahead and fill it out, even if there's a school on there that they're not wild about, or they're not wild about any of them, just so that they've got that as an option if it does turn out to be the thing. There are a couple of students this year who did not fill it out at that time, and they are attending colleges that are on Raise Me, and they're not going to get the scholarships. So there's that. I'm just throwing that out there. Um, and then, when I was talking about applying early, like just in terms of college applications at the beginning of our call, that in particular is referring to the timeline of applications. And I am gonna actually, I'm trying to see if I can pull this up on the screen for y'all. One thing that I noticed with this admissions cycle, the one that the class of 2024 has been a part of, one thing that I noticed is that when students applied like to colleges, regular decision, which is generally like anywhere between December 15th deadline to February 1st, when they applied in that window of time, many, 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 more than I've ever seen, were waitlisted. And it's really frustrating for them to work really hard and take such great care and intention and into their applications, and then be waitlisted. And part of that is, part of that happened because the pool of applicants right now is really large. There was a spike in births in the United States in the birth rate in like 2006, 2007-ish. And so like the number of people who are applying to college is really big, and they only have a certain number of spots. So, and I feel like, and I've read some and talked to quite a few people who work in admissions, and schools a lot of colleges were not anticipating like the increase in early application rates, and would like go ahead and admit a bunch of students and then not save a lot of spaces for regular decision. So, once we made it through this cycle and I saw all of that, I really thought, normally I would follow the child, I would say, and I don't mean child, they're emerging adults, but like I would follow them and meet them where they are and walk on the path with them where they are. But I really don't want them to miss out on the opportunity for admissions, and then the opportunity for the scholarships. And also the opportunity for more self-discovery throughout the year and just experience of a process. I mean, this is the longest project that they're going to do at Crosstown High, probably. And I feel like it would be irresponsible of me as their partner or guide in this process. Like it would be irresponsible of me to just let it be, like, and let them apply when they want to apply. I just want to make sure that, and I don't want to cause any like extreme stress. That is not what I'm here for. Like yeah, like they're getting a nudge along. But I'm really nice about it. And I tell them constantly, like, it's okay to be nervous. It's okay to be on the fence about all of this. We just want to keep putting one foot in front of the other and not stop because we're getting scared, because scared happens, and we got to figure out how to keep moving forward, even when things are unknown, and trust that it will become apparently clear what the right path is, with every step. So I hope that that's helpful. Um, that is something that like that decision to um to really to poise all of the students to apply, you know, in October, very beginning of November, is just because it's just based on what I saw in the last year, and I just want to make sure that they have all of the opportunities and more time and doors open, in order to make the most, informed decisions that they feel good about. So I hope that that's helpful. Okay. Kimberly Baker, is Raise Me something our students have already created a profile for? Okay, so this is interesting. I have like the college advisor account, and it's funny, some students have landed on it. They've found it. I don't know how. They may already have a profile, but they may not. And if they do have a profile already, it will need updating when we get to the summer after that transcript is generated. Um, that the transcript that I keep talking about, that transcript, actually has a name. It's called the initial transcript. And the reason why it's called the initial transcript is because that transcript is the one that we will send to colleges, and it will be their initial view of your students' hard work. Um, Colleges will receive subsequent transcripts, but that's the initial transcript. So it's usually like the second week in June that that's generated. And then, and I'll make sure that I send that to each June, rising senior. And then, if I can send them to parents too, just to make sure that you all are in the loop. So yeah, they may have a profile on Raise Me, they may not. Either way, we're gonna need to update it. So we'll make sure that happens. Raise Me has an app, and it's funny. So my son is a 10th grader here, and when I'm working with technology around college planning, I will often, you know, tell him, hey, get off your video game, come sit with me. I need you to do this and test this out for me so that I can see what it looks like. And he actually recently was trying to work on Raise Me. He hit a roadblock with it, I think using his school account. I don't know. I'll talk to Scott too and make sure that like all paths are clear so that there's no difficulty with that when it comes to summertime. And Kimberly asked, if you get accepted somewhere and then have a great opportunity for a gap year with a career move or real world experience, can you defer the college to next year? Yes. Yes, absolutely. In fact, there are some colleges, who will add a little checkbox for just the possibility of gap year or deferment in their application. They'll say, like, hey, is there a chance that you're thinking about this? And then that's helpful to them in terms of like on them understanding what their numbers will be, because they offer admission to a lot of students and then not everybody attends, and they have to make sure that they have what they call the yield, that because they are a business, they have to have their yield at a certain number in order to have a successful year in terms of sustainability. So yeah, totally. Like I know of gap year programs. If your student is interested in something that has some structure, that's something that comes up a lot when we talk about gap years. I think that there are some students who feel like, okay, I want to work for a year before I go to school. And or that we've got students with lots of really great big ideas around unstructured gap years. And the the thing that I often repeat is that like right now as it is, like there's a certain structure in life for them, for all of us who are here at school. We know we come to school on these certain days. We have specific expectations, specific checkpoints, specific goals. And when you begin the process of making that transition into the next phase of life as an emerging young adult, um, that same structure is not there. You can find opportunities where there is some structure that might be different, and find learn about yourself and your needs and where you thrive and what's really challenging. But then also, there are some students who are like, I just, even, and it's probably has a lot to do with the timing of the conversation. Like right now at the very end of the school year, I did an orientation to letters of recommendation just yesterday for some students who were absent last week. And I was like, look, I know that like right now is not the time to even imagine firing up something brand new. But when the time comes, you know where to find the information. And if you want, you can take these steps today. So yes, gap year is definitely on the table. I've got information and resources for really structured ones. Oh my gosh, there's a great one in Germany that like is, I know that's kind of random, but there's a great one in Germany where where you can go and be a student in Germany for a year and the German government pays for it all. I mean, you probably have to pay for your airfares, but like otherwise, the German government pays for it all. You live with a host family. You do not have to know any German or speak German at all. You can go in completely green. Um, and yeah, wild. And then there are other opportunities for gap years, here in Memphis or through AmeriCorps in different areas in terms of like service gap years, going and work in trail crew in wilderness areas. Like we've got resources for sure, for curious students. Yeah, I will definitely think about what possibilities could be helpful to Anna Rose in terms of her music career, because yeah, I really love imagining her at an artist residency, um, but not the one here in the building because that's not different enough from life right now. Like maybe one somewhere else. Um, Being able to have that space to create, and write and learn as well, especially if there are other musicians there. Okay. Oh my gosh, you guys, it's 6:42. Why are you still here? Why am I still here? Because I'm still talking. I'm really nerdy about all this stuff. If you ever want to get nerdy about it, obviously I'm down. Thank you all so much. Again, I'm so sorry to have kept you on here for this long. Holy smokes. I really am sorry. I had no idea what time it was because I just get talking. Questions that come up, always email me. I'm going to just end this because that has been a long time. And I hope that you have a great evening and get off of this screen and get away from screens and enjoy the nice temperatures outside. So I'll see you soon. Bye. Thanks again.